Welcome back. What we're going to talk about now is how to make a basic pasta sauce. This is a great recipe. You can vary the recipe a lot, add other stuff, but I like it because it's useful on a lot of different things. You can use it for pizza, you can use it for pasta sauce, you can use it for baked pasta, you can use it to dip in, it can be a marinara if you add a little bit of red pepper to it and so on, but you can do a lot of stuff with it. And I like those kind of recipes because it's something that once you learn how to make it, you can use it in a whole bunch of different places. And again, it reduces the hassle. You don't have to remember a whole bunch of different recipes. You only need one, okay? So a couple things that are important. Pasta sauce, I prefer Italian tomatoes, okay? Number one, they have a little bit less water. These ones here are really great, or the San Marzanos. These have less water in them. They have a better flavor. They're aged a little bit longer on the vine, so the flavor's a lot fuller, okay? With these guys, it's also important. This recipe is also important to have some good fresh garlic. You can always tell a garlic is fresh when you press on the outside. It should be nice and hard. Okay, if it's soft or it looks really old, then that can be a bit of a problem. You don't want those. Okay, so with this recipe, it's pretty straightforward. You can vary the amounts a little bit if you want to, just because you know if you don't want that much garlic or you want a little more, you can put some in. I usually do 2 cans of tomatoes. Okay. That's 2 27-ounce cans, and then maybe about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. This thing is a little lifesaver when you're doing garlic and you need to peel garlic. You just shove the garlic inside the tube, and then you give it a quick roll, and out pops a peeled piece of garlic. Again, it's all about less hassle. Less hassle means more time spent cooking, less time spent cursing. Okay, so we're going to do this. Give this a quick peel here. Okay, now cutting garlic. So a good thing to know, always trim the end off because that can be hard as a rock. You don't want that getting in the sauce. So we're going to give those a quick trim. I'm going to make sure we don't have any weirdness on them. They look all clean. Yeah, it looks pretty good. That's got a little bit of an end on it there. We'll get rid of that. Okay. And then the easiest and safest way, garlic's round, and so that don't work too well. But if you take the knife blade and put it down on top and then give it a press, you flatten it out. Then it's a little easier. And if you've got a sharp blade, you can just do this. Again, always keeping your fingers straight up and down next to it, and then it makes short work of that, okay? So, again, press, and then chop. Okay, the key with this knife, again, is you don't saw it with it. You don't need to do that. This is a hard vegetable, so we're going to chop. Okay. The other thing to know about garlic, and this is also applicable to onions, is that garlic and onions have 3 different flavors depending upon whether or how you've cooked them, okay? So from a garlic perspective, garlic has a fresh flavor, so just like this as is right now, if you taste it, it has a very sharp, pungent flavor. Then it has a sauteed flavor, which is after I've taken it, put it in a little olive oil, and I've gone ahead and cooked it for a very short period of time, maybe 30 seconds in hot olive oil. That gives it a sauteed flavor, which takes out some of the sharpness, but leaves the garlic undernotes. The last one is browned, so like, caramelized. So garlic has a very different flavor when it's browned. For this sauce, we want sauteed, which means we do not want to brown the garlic. As soon as the garlic gets brown, that means it's going to have a very different flavor, okay? You don't want that, okay? So, All right, so we got this here. We take advantage of our knife. Scoop it all up. Drop it in here. All right, now that's ready. Now we're gonna go outside. I like to grow herbs. Fresh herbs, I think, have a much better flavor. And again, it's less hassle. If I want to make a pasta sauce, I don't have to go to the store. Everything you see here, the garlic, will keep for weeks in a bowl. You don't need to put it in the refrigerator. Canned tomato sauce keeps forever. Okay, and as long as you've got herbs growing in the garden or on a windowsill, you have everything you need to make a pasta sauce without having to go to the store. So we keep this around. I keep about 12 cans of this around at any one time. We always keep garlic around. And the herbs are in the garden, so let's go out there. So now we're outside. A few things about herbs. We keep the primary ones for Italian cooking. Here you have some thyme. You can always tell the thyme because it has the small leaves. There's two different kinds here. This is regular English thyme. And over here we have lemon thyme. So depending on what I'm making, I might choose between them, or I might go ahead and just use one of them. It doesn't really matter. For this bunch here, we're just going to grab a bunch of this. Grab a bunch of that. For this recipe, that's about enough, right about there. And we're going to go get some oregano. Oh, this is oregano over here. There's two different varieties. This is Italian, and this is Mexican. So depending upon the, you can tell the size of the leaves. The Italian oregano has a much bigger leaf. So we're going to grab some of that. Okay, so again, that's about enough, a small handful. All right. Then we're going to go get some basil. So basil is very important. Basil plants are looking kind of marginal today, but we don't need too much. We're going to grab some of this and a few leaves from this one over here. There we go. We got everything we need. You guys live in a little colder climate back there, back east, but that's not a problem. You can move those plants inside and they'll grow pretty much all year round. So we're going to take these over here and give them a quick rinse. Shake the excess water off so they cut a little easier. Okay. With these kind of plants, it's pretty straightforward. Simply take it and just strip the leaves off. So we're going to do this. We need about maybe, I don't know, a couple teaspoons of each. Try to keep the stems out of it. We really don't want the stems, we just want the leaves. I can go in just like that. Now this is a great example of a use of your knife. With herbs, maybe push them together with my fingers. Keep my hands straight up and down. Give them a quick chopping. And then we're going to go in with the knife and chop it up nice and fine. And you don't need to, you notice it doesn't take very long. If you use the knife right, like this, then you're done in like less than 30 seconds. Okay, so now we have that. Now we're not going to put it in yet. What we're going to do is come over here and we're going to get some olive oil. Let's keep some good olive oil around. And we're going to put a few tablespoons of olive oil in there. Okay. Turn on the stove. All right, now again, we don't want to brown the garlic. We just want to cook it just until it starts to sizzle. So we're going to let that start to sizzle. While that's going to sizzle, we're going to get this, again, keeping our bowls and stuff close by is very handy. We're going to put this into a bowl so that when we need to, we can dump it in. And the other thing we're going to do is get our tomatoes ready. So I happen to have an open can right here already. And we'll put one up. Again, there's two 27-ounce cans of tomatoes. You'll notice these are whole tomatoes. This is not chopped, this is not pureed, this is whole tomatoes, okay? You can get the pureed stuff. I don't think it really matters that much. I prefer the whole tomatoes. Okay. All right. Now we've got our garlic cooking, and you can see that it's bubbling up nicely. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit. We don't want it to get brown, but we're going to let it sizzle like that for about 15-20 seconds. And then we're going to start putting the tomatoes in. So you can do this how you want. These do need to be chopped, so what I usually do is I'll squeeze out the juices, put them into there, and then we'll bring them back over here, and we will chop up tomatoes really quickly, and then toss everything back in. Okay, so those are probably all good over there. Yep. Okay, and then we just take this, holding the tomatoes back, just drop everything in there. Okay. And second batch. Okay. That will allow the sauce to start cooking now. Put the garlic in there. And that keeps the garlic from browning. Now I'm going to just take these tomatoes. And we're going to... You can do it however you like. If you got a food mill, you can pass it through a food mill, make it nice and pureed. If you don't, you can just give it a rough chop. I tend to like it kind of chunky. So I'm just going to give it a quick chop. All done. Okay. And now we're going to just take this straight over here, and we're going to run it in there. Okay, we've got our tomatoes, got our garlic. Now we just need our herbs. If you have dried herbs, you can use dried, but again, I think these kind of herbs lose a lot of their potency when they're dried. So not necessarily the best solution, but in a pinch, if you got to do it, that's fine. If you're going to buy herbs at the store, what I would advise is get the herbs that have the small chunk of dirt still attached. The roots are still attached. That allows you to use the herbs for that meal, and then you can just take that piece of dirt, stick it in a pot outside, and they will take off and grow. Thyme and oregano both grow abundantly, so they're easy to grow and very hardy. They'll withstand winters, cold weather, everything. So very easy to do. Basil's a little more tender. It doesn't like freezing cold weather, so the basil usually I'll bring inside for the winter time. All right, so we're gonna let that cook, and then I always like keeping a box of salt around. People like salt shakers and things like that, but if you're cooking and you need to salt water or things like that, it makes it really hard. As a quick measure, again, this is about reducing hassle. If you take your hand out, if you pour a small amount into your hand, that's a teaspoon. If you pour enough to coat your palm, that's about a tablespoon. Okay, so if you need to make measurements really fast, this is a good way to do it, because I don't have to hassle with trying to pull out a spoon, pour it in there, and then I end up spilling half of it into the sauce and end up with too much. So useful to be able to get yourself to where you can do measurements in your hand without having to go ahead and constantly pull out measuring devices. All right. So now the important part is we're going to let this sit. We're going to let this cook for about 45 minutes, just on low heat. Let it cook. What we're trying to do is we want to get a lot of the water. There's some water in the tomatoes, and we want to get the water out of the sauce, because otherwise, when I put it on the pasta, it's gonna have a lot of water around the edge of the pasta. That doesn't look very good. Okay, but it'll also help to caramelize the tomatoes a little bit. The result will be a relatively what I call a fresh tomato sauce. A lot of Italian Americans make the meat sauce that's been on the stove for 5 or 10 hours. I don't tend to like that kind of sauce anymore. It kind of develops a bit of an acrid, bitter taste in the end when the tomatoes have been cooking too long. This is much more of a fresh sauce, fresh garlic, fresh herbs. The tomatoes have just been canned. That's pretty much it. And all we're going to do is reduce it down a little bit until we get rid of the water. At that point, you can tell that when you stir it, you're not going to see any water bubbling up to the surface. It's just going to be nice and thick, and it'll be all ready. And that's it for this segment.